All right, now that we have all the headsets in place, thank you for waiting. I'm going to introduce each of our fellow panelists. Okay, it's now starting with Ali. So we have with us today Mr. Ali Hashimi. He's responsible for technology at Deloitte. And I'm aware that Deloitte are doing a lot because I keep reading all your reports on blockchain and the work that you're doing in the region. So we'll learn more about that today. Of course, everybody I think knows as well Mr. Jihad Tayyara, who is the VP for commercial
business development.
Business development and partnership, ICT.
Exactly.
He does everything at Duno. So, and Du has been at the forefront of blockchain implementation within Dubai, Smart Dubai, and the blockchain as a service. Dr. Hisham bin Abbas, he's heading the advisory for blockchain for the Ministry of Communication and IT in KSA. And today we're going to learn more about what the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are planning when it comes to blockchain. And my favorite to my heart, Mrs. Dina Faris. She heads she's director of the digital government, Ajman government. Yes. And they've also done a really great project because I think they're one of the first to have actually a use case when it comes to a blockchain in Ajman. And I'd love that she share it with us today as well as their future plans. And finally, without Dr. Khalid Tahan, who is the CEO of BSS. They are the technology arm of the Oman government. Can I say that? Yes, and they're going to be announcing as well. You'll be talking about the strategy that they've just formalized for implementation of blockchain within the government sector in Oman. Is that fine? Did I miss anything? Great. So I wanted just to first give everybody 2-3 minutes to talk about what you've done, okay? And then we'll talk about, and then I'll ask another question about how has this benefit and the challenges that you faced and the lessons that you learned. Of course, you are in the process, so you can give your opinion about what you think. So we'll start with Ali from Deloitte. Today you are embarking and you've given a lot of consultation on blockchain projects. What's the most important element for you when it comes to implementation, adoption?
Yeah, I think from the point of view of implementing these technologies, the most important point is actually adoption, designing for adoption actually.
Designing for adoption?
Yes. So, there are use cases actually, but the important thing is whether the implementation is going to be adopted or not. That's can you hear me?
Not very well. Okay.
Yes. So we have to distinguish two types of use cases in the public sector. First of all, there is, for example, the linear digitalization, for example, keeping the records and identities. Those are typically part of digital transformation. And then you have other projects which actually hit the marketplace. That's where you will actually face a lot of challenges, actually, because that's where public and private intersect. And then you have to consider a lot of things regarding adoption. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we have seen in this particular space. So we are undertaking a large project.
Governmental? Is it a government project?
It's a large public sector project that we are currently working on. And we have actually framed it in terms of an evolutionary journey. So in other words, when you are thinking about adoption, you have to think about as soon as you put blockchain anywhere, it's going to disintermediate and it's going to disrupt. This is the nature of technology. So the way we're approaching it is how to actually come up with a trajectory which will disrupt in a manner which is going to actually continue, which is not going to impact business as usual that much, but will have an end state which you can achieve 3, 4, 5 years, which is the ideal end state which will reap the benefits of this particular technology.
Yeah. Thank you. Jihad, from your experience, with the work that you've done with Smart Dubai, and now that you're moving forward with blockchain as a service, What do you think that, where do you think this can take governments, and how can governments utilize it and benefit?
Let me start first by telling you what we do in general in this area. And you mentioned business development and ICT. So basically what we do is we help focus on transform and help organizations transform their business. So in this digital transformation, and this is what started a few years ago, and you mentioned Smart Dubai, we work with them on building the Dubai Pulse, which is the digital heartbeat of the city, which is the backbone, digital backbone of Dubai in terms of connectivity and technology. So from then onward, we started focusing more and more on this growth area for us, and we listened to our customers. And the customers were always saying, we want you to help us in this transformation, okay? So we've been with us all the time on the connectivity side, on the hosting, on the data center side. Let's evolve this story together. And this is how we started building that capability more and more in terms of cloud services, reaching all the way to our recent announcement on blockchain platform as a service. So what we announced is launching this blockchain as a service in terms of cloud. So the intention is to sit with our clients, sit with our large enterprises in terms of focusing exactly like Ali was saying on adoption. So to help the adoption process and to help you focus on your journey and as a customer and on the deliverable that you do rather than focusing on the technology per se, this is a great way we thought of to help this transformation. So we announced this blockchain platform as a service that will relieve the customer from all the IT services. You can consume blockchain as a cloud service. So you can go online, configure it, build the nodes, do all of this. And this was, and we're doing this with a consensus. And we're availing this very soon. We're launching this in the first half of the year. It's going to be ready, and it has both flavor, Hyperledger and Ethereum.
So do you think governments will, are your key clients when it comes to blockchain as a service?
Definitely.
Or is it more the private sector will go?
I don't want to touch, I thought we'll cover this later. So
No,
definitely government, governments are, we're very lucky in the UAE to be, realizing, and Dina's here on this side from Ajman basically, and there is a lot of attention and a lot of, we're lucky, the government organization here are sometimes more progressive and advanced than private sector, which is really surprising. I work in different countries. Surprising, it's amazing that you see all this focus and all this attention from the government organization. So from the targets set, it's very clear. So from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed across the UAE, like 50% adoption of blockchain services, to Sheikh Hamdan in Dubai, celebrating paperless transaction in December 2020. This is amazing. And you cannot imagine this happening without blockchain services, right? How do you build that trust between organization, between people, So if you look at it from a service perspective, definitely there are plenty of demand for blockchain services. And this is what we're noticing from the government organization as well.
Thank you. Dr. Hisham, so we've been hearing bits and pieces in KSA, blockchain is becoming applied, whether it's with the Saudi Customs, whether it's with STC, whether it's with Riyadh Municipality. So within the Ministry of ICT and Telecom, what are you doing to help advance these implementations?
Yeah, actually we look at the blockchain as one of the emerging technologies that we would like to enable and promote. It comes from different views, actually, from technology point of view, from the economical point of view, and also from the regulatory point of view, and that where mainly the government is concerned about. So in the government, we are concerned to develop and build the ecosystem elements. One of them is the regulatory, of course, framework, but also we would like to promote the local capabilities and to develop certain use cases with the government or with every users, actually. So it is very important to have all these together, integrated, and we try to catalyze the different component and also players until we can come up with a stage that we develop also a regulatory framework and governance model to promote these technologies. The reason for that, or justification for that, blockchain is a technology that comes with its benefits and values, so it can also drive the national economy and contribute positively to the national GDP.
Thank you. And is there anything today that you can talk about that is in POS that you're looking into and you're moving towards having a use case on it? I mean, something that's approved?
Yeah, actually, the way that we are trying to do this is by creating or focusing on two different parts, the demand side and also the supply side. For the demand side, we work with the government by implementing accelerator or incubators, so we can develop certain use cases, also incubate some startups, entrepreneurs, and also at the supply side, we also incentivize local companies, entrepreneurs, also attract international companies to come and invest and work together with the local workforce. So by the end of this, we can also promote these technologies by developing certain framework, regulatory framework, and standards so everybody can work clearly, and they can also do some planning for the future for their investments and also for the technology to be enabled. As a government, it's very, very important to introduce a stable technology and also to save people and their investments when it comes to the real applications.
Thank you. This is Dina Fez. So can you just let us know what you've done in Ajman and why it's been such a big thing? You know, it's different than what others have done, and how has it benefited any governmental services?
Okay. So just to start to give you the quick story of how did we reach there. By the end of 2016, Ajman Digital Government has released the Digital Transformation Plan of the Emirate of Ajman. This plan aims towards efficiency and effectiveness of governments, digitalizing services, providing exceptional customer experiences, providing digital services that are trusted, available around the clock, and adopting emerging technologies. Now, blockchain, it was a buzzword for governments for some time. It's very promising, it's very appealing, but as much as it's promising, we also hear a lot of failures, a lot of experimentation issues got stuck, to the extent that even when we were in a meeting in the conference of Gartner, they said, well, we are telling all our clients that we will not be able to give them any quadrant. You know, they usually put the leaders in some sort of quadrant. They were not able to specify any technology firm or any specific blockchain platforms to any of their clients. So it was risky. We spent like one whole year benchmarking, reading, visiting, checking what other blockchain projects have been done all over the world, trying to understand what lessons learned so we avoid falling in the same mistake. And checking what is the right use case to start with, because as the previous colleagues said in the panel before us, it could end up as any normal database can do the job. So why go in this complications, and it's expensive as well, while there's already another current solution that can do the same. So until we reached to a point that we chose a problem that we have in the Emirate, which is the land and property ownership across the Emirate. Currently, the parcels or the land pieces are created, splitted, merged with all the information, whether it's accepted for foreign ownership, what are the liens available, is it commercial, residential, all of those types of information is available in our municipality, Ajman municipality. On the other side, the title deeds that proves the ownership of a specific land or a property with all the information regarding owners is available in the land department. Again, fines are scattered between two entities. There is also a lot of potential entities that is important to join this network. You can name them as banks, other government entities, other federal entities, because the way we work in Ajman, we have local government entities, we do have federal as well. So all of those are very potential to have them all in one network. It can give a substantial difference in the customer experience when they try to own a land or to sell their property in the Emirate. So we've met our main two stakeholders, and we said that we will not go big, because one of the mistakes that we've seen other governments fall in, they start with a huge network. from our experience, the business acceptance from all those stakeholders is much more complicated than the technology itself. Getting people to agree on a unified data model, what will be shared, what is accepted, what is not accepted, it's not an easy thing. And we started working, we started looking for the good, for a trusted, let's say, blockchain platform technology who can provide us support through the full life cycle. The development part, the operating part, the governance part. And we started working on them. We released the POC in GITEX, last GITEX in October 2018. And hopefully we're going live next month, inshallah.
That's good.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I remember when we met, you told me one of the most difficult things is to get all the partners to come together.
Yes, exactly.
So the first round you just started with 2. So today, are there more partners that have joined?
When we announced, we had our full plan set in place, but we were really busy to just get the MVP out on GITEX because it was quite tight. And during the event itself, we know the people the entities that we want them to join the network, they came to us.
Okay.
They said, this is very important for us. This will solve a lot of issues. It will enhance our customer experience. There's also some government revenue losses, by the way, because of this scattered
Yes.
information all around. So it's gonna be a win-win for everyone. Win-win for the government, win-win for the customers. And for us as a small emirate to adopt this emerging technology and have a successful story.
That's why I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Dr. Khaled. So Oman is
So
embarking.
in Oman, yes. So thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
In Oman, we actually started this initiative in November 2016. And it started off by establishing BSS, which is a company, a government company, and a blockchain club. The two main focuses for us and what we see in this realm in the fourth industrial revolution is knowledge. So there's a lot of knowledge to be had here. And following that, innovation. And innovative use cases within a new space and potential market making and taking that forward. So this is the strategy where we started from, and we've expanded awareness and understanding within the government for that, within the technology space. We've underwent extensive training sessions for our developer society in Oman, who have started building applications, and we tend to take them out as competitions so that we stimulate the SME environments and build the use cases themselves. And we've underwent those extensive trainings. So we chose a partner, a technical partner, who shares that vision of knowledge transfer. And Swisscom Blockchain have been a great help. We've underwent 2 training sessions already in Oman for our developers. From the use cases perspective, before getting to use cases, exactly as Dina mentioned, and the previous panel was very healthy about, permission platforms under one custody, why use blockchain? It's as simple as that. So what we're doing is we're deploying the blockchain this month. We have started with a permission network, but we're distributing its trust. Okay, so it's not under one custody. And this is coming. So we want to get the values and principles of blockchain into the permission space. When you distribute the trust, you decrease the chance of someone being able to tamper with the result or the data on that platform. Furthermore, then we're looking at use cases. That's the last level. And from that realm, we're predominantly looking at the benefits it presents today. Definitely immutability is the main value we can see in the technology. It has its limitations. We had the sexy abbreviation in the previous discussion. So we want to look at problems that are solved within those limitations for today. Whilst we innovate use cases that once those limitations are overcome, they will go global. And that's the essential part. So just like the CEO of Do mentioned in the first presentation, Your stakeholders need to be on board. They have to have the heart and will. So it's hard in a corporate environment, and that's why the government is more of a better vehicle, potentially, because they can foresee the future for their people. And it is actually a better vehicle for this stimulation of growth, be it educational, be it platform-based, where you can mature it with time and distribute it to stakeholders between parties. You're creating a consortium, basically. Ministry of Health with the Central Bank of Oman. Two complete different parallels. So if they want to cheat, central bank's not going to listen to them because it's completely different agendas. So you're creating that sort of trust. And the next level in the future, but this is definitely not ready for today, and this is pertaining to the morning discussion, the first panel before this, will be anchoring. You're going to need that trust Bitcoin gives you, that security level. You can hash your blockchain and plug it into the Bitcoin blockchain. It's irrelevant data. It's not data that anyone can use, but you're getting that trust or that resiliency of a bigger network. It doesn't necessarily have to be Bitcoin. It's whatever that prominent network of security will be in the future. So that's down the line, not for today.
Okay. I'm going to ask you more about it soon.
Sure.
Okay. So the great thing about what's happening in the MENA region is governments are taking on blockchain before even a private sector is. What do you think the governments in the region, in your opinions, in each, want from this? I mean, why are they the ones that are moving forward with this? And how much will this enhance their governance and so forth?
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
So-
yeah. Did you get my point? And what are they going to get out of it? Because already everything is in their hands anyway. So, I mean, between themselves, with their customer, why?
So it depends again on what they're trying to do. So for example, if they're actually focusing on efficiency, delivering high quality services, then you have a number of use cases that are actually in the market. But when you're actually thinking about areas where government is trying to actually focus on innovation and creating an ecosystem, that's really important. That's where blockchain comes in. So ultimately, for example, in our case, what we have seen is in the public sector, the government is looking at really coming up a value proposition for the entire ecosystem. So there is something in for all the stakeholders in that particular ecosystem. So that's the essential goal that they have. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is that blockchain, when we think about it, it's like TCP/IP. So it started with something like, if you look at the evolution of TCP/IP, it started with email in our ARPANET. It was a single use case. Then we had the more localized deployment, where it was the Department of Defense which was using it. And then came the substitution, where businesses took over, and then followed by transformation in which we are, the current state. So same thing with the blockchain. In our particular case, that's the intent that they have. They want to actually see the entire journey go through. So in our particular case, we are not just thinking about the services, but how would we actually achieve an ecosystem where we'll basically see such transformation taking place. Now, keeping in mind that blockchain is really a fat protocol with a very thin client services. So what we mean by that is that once the protocol is there, it's really easy to build a client-centric or customer-centric or citizen-centric services on it. So that's the end goal in our particular case, and the end goal is that we have seen in the region is generally the governments here in the public sector, they want to focus on these areas essentially.
What do you think, Jad?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic. It's a little bit philosophical. So how we usually discuss in AI, your job and my job in the future, there's a very strong analogy here. I was discussing with Dr. Ahoud, is how government as well, government have this discussion. So with the blockchain advancement, will there be the same government organization in the future? So the same way we discuss our jobs, government are discussing their roles. And when you have a progressive government and you have a vision, not government, I mean, Dina was discussing exactly the challenge and the tension that's happening here. So when you go to Emirates Tower and look at the 2071 ecosystem, I don't know if the governments as they are will still exist in the future, right? And what blockchain is bringing to the story is this element of trust. When I sell my car, I trust that the Road and Transport Authority will transfer the name. When I pay my bill, I trust the Dubai, the land department that Dina was talking about. I trust them that I will own this piece of land, right, in the future. In the future, if I give you a way to generate that trust without that organization in the middle, without that even government entity, this is a very long-term thinking process, and this is what's in it for the government. A government with a vision will definitely start thinking of those things from now, and this is what's happening. It's extremely exciting, and this is why we're seeing government organization more progressive on, and now we're seeing, I mean, you talked about Bitcoin, and then now we're seeing, I would call it the reality from the hype. We moved from hype to reality. Last year we were here, everybody was talking about cryptocurrency, right? Now you barely see questions about, which is good. I mean, at least from my business, I'm an enterprise blockchain, so I don't want to answer questions about how much is Bitcoin going up and the cryptocurrency. Okay, so I'm focusing on enterprise blockchain and how we can help businesses transform. And the main point that, again, Dina made, it's amazing. We see this everywhere. It's this tension between transforming the service as opposed to worrying about the technology, right? So technology, I mean, TCP/IP was there. Now no one talks about TCP/IP. I mean, you use mail service. You don't use TCP/IP to connect or internet or any of those things. We're talking about the technology because it was a hype. It's moving forward. But we should be more talking about. I mean, I had an interview in the morning, and he was talking about which industries, which blockchain. I'm not focusing about blockchain. I'm focusing about services. We made an announcement this morning with the Donor Health Tech Company, which is a healthcare service. So the service basically is we launched this in the market. We made this available now. We still didn't contract it. It's a service that it's for the patients to be able to verify that their medicine or their blood bag is not tampered with, is safe, is for this country in terms of origin because there are different composition of medicine, and it was not exposed to more heat than it should have been. And it is safe for me to use it as a patient. And this is really what matters. Now, it uses NFC, it uses IoT, it uses connectivity, it uses blockchain, fine. But at the end of the day, this is the service that we're offering.
So yeah, we're reinventing it's either we're reinventing the journeys of the citizens in any kind of service that they're going to be doing, or we're making sure that the quality of their lives are better. But somehow government becomes, you don't see them anymore. It's seamless. So they become this background player rather than this transactional that we go to every day to do stuff with. And this is the dichotomy that I see. Okay, governments are pushing towards that, but aren't they afraid
somewhere
of
else.
that?
You might see them somewhere else. It's exactly the same analogy I do on the AI. When I lose my job, if a robot can do my job, I'll move to another job. You will still see the government in different forms. They will not disappear. They cannot disappear, right? But they will exist in different forms.
But do they know that form when they're doing this, right? I mean, do you know what you're going to be, Dina, when you do these services that are going to become seamless? So a customer won't come in maybe to the municipality anymore. Through their app, they can pay their fine and everything. They can sell their house, and they will never see maybe a government employee.
Yes, and see, we always say, going back to the AI that you refer to, all studies showed that, yes, some jobs, some stuff will vanish, but a lot of other opportunities will come. So for me, my target as a government is to provide an exceptional customer experience, to go paperless. So yes, I'm trying to enhance the customer experience, but definitely have a lot of other things. I need to improve this customer experience and focus on other points. So it's not like I'm not going to vanish, as what he said. Maybe we will change the way we are interacting with governments, but we have to cope with those emerging technologies. We have to utilize them to its full potential for me to be able to serve people in a better way.
And you also have to, you're going to have to open yourselves up a lot, because you're going to have to bring in third parties that you weren't really before working with on the very close level.
So, and we all know that in even government services, there is a lot of third parties for me as a customer, if I'm looking at the full customer journey, I have to pay a lot because I'm not only paying the government, I'm paying for all those stops in between until I get the service. So why not eliminate that for the favor of the customer? Why not look from a customer-centric approach? So for us, if we speak about our use case in Ajman, having this use case can help me achieve the vision of the Emirate for 2021, will help me to reduce the number of papers customers have to carry from one entity to another to prove that this land is owned by himself. It will also help customers if they are looking for a housing loan. If you go to apply for a housing loan, for example, in governments for Sheikh Zayed program, housing program, you need to prove that I don't have anything. So why should I ask the customer to go visit many entities just to get this piece of paper, while the government can just check itself, does this person have any land or property in the Emirate? Another thing that we see very important is that we look at blockchain, since it's immutable records, to have the full history of the Emirate, each and every piece of land, what happened to it, who owned it at a specific point of time. That's history. For us, it's also something very important. Maybe for a customer, he doesn't see the importance of that, but us as governments, we need to understand what's going on. Who owned the specific piece of land? What happens to land over time? I believe that
So
those
what's
type of
another
things-
use case, Dina, that you want to get into? I mean, what's another use case that you see that we should do this next time, or this is the next step?
Well, there is huge potential everywhere. Honestly, if you look at it, you will see that there's huge potential in issuing trade licenses, for example.
Issuing trade license.
Trade license, for example, depends on the type of activity you want to have a trade license. You can reach to 42 entities you have to take approvals from. Can you imagine how hectic it is? For me as an investor, I have to go to, that's the maximum, of course. It depends on the types of the activities, but it reaches up to 42 entities, 42 approvals, 42 processes, 42 different fines. It's very hectic. So there is a lot of potential in governments, and I think our wise leadership, they've seen this potential, announcing 2021 to be fully on blockchain. They understand that this could bring huge value to the economy of the Emirate and to the happiness of UAE residents and nationals.
Thank you. Dr. Hisham, where do you think that...
Yeah, actually, we all agree that we should be service-driven, not technology-driven, actually. And from this perspective, I believe that government should be involved in such technology. When blockchain, for example, emerged, it came with some promises that very much aligned with every government goals. So to provide transparency, speed of the transactions, all kind of advantages of the blockchain, it's very much aligned with the government. So the government, it's not their purpose to be in control of everything, rather than facilitating and providing services for users and also improving the quality of life. So I don't see there is a conflict between the technology and the role of government. Rather than the unregulated technology sometimes make some issues. That's why we are concerned about this one, just to see how is the regulatory framework, the international also standards evolving. And this is, I think, the right time to engage and also to try to understand and learn from the experiences through the use cases. And it depends also on every use case. For every use case, it has its own maybe restrictions. So it's very important to choose the right technology for the right, for the desired use case. Technology is an opportunity, actually, for government to try and also to promote, not only from the technology point of view and also from the economical point of view. So we believe the blockchain is going also to change the business model of many businesses right now. So it is very important to understand what are the maybe opportunities or limitations of this one, so we can change and adapt to these kind of technologies. It's very much aligned with the vision of any government. So there is no threat as maybe Bitcoin introduced when it became first, as it was involved in the black market or some fraud, some kind of issues. This is just an introductory, but as a technology is good and is important. important, and there is a good potential in the future that it will get some reward for government and for people.
Dr. Hisham, I just wanted to ask, have you chosen a platform that you want to, I mean, has the government chosen a platform that they want to work with over another, or you're still open to working with different platforms?
Yeah, actually, it must be open. It depends on the application actually and the use case. So you are asking
So you
about
choose,
you are asking about platforms. Yeah, actually, the platform is not the issue right now. The issue is just to see what are the technical requirements and also the regulatory standard needed by users and also by providers. So we are not into providing or endorsement for any other for platform rather than other. It's all open, and I believe all should coexist. Also, like the discussion happened before about whether permissioned or permissionless, I don't see there is priority in this. It depends on the architecture. It depends on the need. Both should coexist. It depends on the desire of the client and the situations, and also the time. Maybe we can start right now if it is gonna maybe create some problems or issues. You can start, for example, with permissioned public blockchain until it's mature and everybody is okay and relaxed about the dark side of this, until maybe we can go to permissionless. If this is the path. But actually, it depends on the use case and the application. Maybe you can just go from start, from permissioned, or maybe permissionless. It depends on the architecture. It's not about whether this better
Yeah, I
than
get
the
it.
other. They should all coexist. Yeah.
Dr. Khalid, I just wanted, so I know that you're going to do something across 21 ministries. That's what I've heard.
No, well, that's not the vision.
That's not?
That's very.
Not accurate?
It's what we had is that started with a symposium with the 21 ministers
Okay.
present. But we are exploring blockchain across all the ministries, so they're involved, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're launching 21
So, okay,
applications. However, as was mentioned, government does not need to deal with the technology side of things. They need to get the use cases out there, and from the use cases, innovations come out, user experiences improve based on blockchain plus other technologies. The user experience is not based only on blockchain. And that's what the government is focused on. We are effectively also eliminating the headaches associated with what do I have to understand of the technology. Today, the technology presents immutability. It presents it in a good way. That's a good use. So we look at use cases associated with that. But does it eliminate intermediaries, i.e. the government itself? I disagree. And even permissionless will not do that. Both will not do that. You will need intermediaries, and the government will always be needed. And the reason for that is, like Dina mentioned, you're improving the user experience for the 95% of the population that's using it, but then you've got that 5% that face problems. And that's where government steps in and facilitates. And that's the same case in the permissionless environment. You cannot just release that responsibility onto the end user. They don't want the headache of handling their own security of their tokens and all of this. So intermediaries are not gone. I don't think this is a threat to the government. It will complement the government. Blockchain plus other technologies will help improve its efficiency for the day-to-day operations and the user experience. The citizens will benefit from that with a better lifestyle from that. But it's when things go wrong is we are always, as a government, there to facilitate the end user. And that's where their role becomes. They become the protector.
That in Oman, you're working with Oman Tel.
Yes.
In Saudi Arabia, you're working with STC that are going to be doing blockchain as a service. And here in the UAE, you have Do as well. So it's interesting how government has started to partner with telcos.
Well, we look at it from a design feature. I'm not sure if it's the same here. Highlight for me,
Sure.
please. But what we're looking at it is we want to distribute trust. It's a distributed technology. You want to get immutability, you need to distribute trust. It doesn't make sense to Omantel have their own platform, then the question really comes back, why am I not using a database? So, so immutability comes from that distribution. So it's a critical component.
No, definitely, I totally agree with. But what we're offering is the cloud, the opportunity to consume the service of the cloud. The nodes will be distributed, yes, but building that capability is is consuming it through the cloud. So
Sure.
this is where the value is.
That's the hosting part.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah. The hosting, the development, the ecosystem. But once you launch your service, it'll be distributed. You'll be able to
time do we
create
have?
those nodes from within that platform and distribute them. So what we're providing is a tool to enable you to build that service rather than building it centralized. Yeah, definitely. I missed to explain this. So we're not advertising for a centralized blockchain service.
Sure.
It's an oxymoron.
Yeah,
no.
we're actually doing both.
Yeah.
A dev and the development platform is beneficial for academics, and they are able to build use cases out of it, as well as a permissioned distributed node, which will be for government.
Sure. I mean,
I
the way
wanted
we add value, just to be clear, I mean, because some people, why telcos? Because we have the technical know-how, we have the resources. We've been providing connectivity, we've been providing data center, hosting, cloud service. So this is evolving, and this is all evolving in the same sphere.
course.
So this is where we can add value and relieve the end customer from the complexity of dealing with multiple partners and multiple vendors, right? Because the transformation story is not only about blockchain. We're here talking about,
Exactly.
so there are many facets to this. So the service we just launched this morning has IoT, has NFC, has healthcare, has blockchain,
AI.
right? And has connectivity and an app.
Yes.
So all of it together is in one bundle, one package.
Is the user experience.
Yes.
Before because we don't have that much time, so sometimes when governments have implemented, there's been lessons learned, okay? And there's been challenges. Can you just, in like 1 minute each of you, like what was a big challenge that you faced and what was a lesson that you learned? So do you want to start from Dina?
Start with me. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, for me, for us, the lessons learned basically was the business acceptance, getting all those members to accept how we will work together. This is very complicated more than the technology itself. It takes, or let me put it in another way, it consumes a lot of time. So that's the hardest part of it. In addition to that, the scarcity of the skill set required to operate such platforms. So yes, I understand that today there are big telecommunication firms, for example, like they provide this as a service, but still government entities need some sort of skill set in order to administrate that. And those skill sets are not very available in the market, or in our region, let's say. Data integrity is another point. Now, the point, when you reach to the blockchain and you start doing the initial data load, if the data from other members is garbage in is garbage out. There's no any benefit of that. So
It's the
that's
cleaning of the data.
yes,
to
that's another challenge also you have to put into consideration. So that's quick 3 lessons learned, and of course, setting the right criteria based on which you will use the use case for blockchain. You don't want to go and get any use case and say, I'm going to use blockchain for it, because it might not be the right thing. You'll just get into too much complications. Without the need of that, you can still achieve this with a much easier solution. So choosing the use case, getting ready to have skill set in place, the data integrity part, it's very important.
Thank you. Alia, because you do a lot of consulting in this
Yeah, I mean,
field.
so a lot of challenges. First of all, I think main thing is that when you're embarking on a blockchain project, you should actually think about why blockchain actually.
Why blockchain?
I mean, you can do the same thing on a centralized database as well. So you have to think about why blockchain, and and is it actually, are you focused on actually really like reaping the benefits that it will actually come up with, disintermediation essentially, and then creation of a community around it. So that's one of the main benefits that you will come up with blockchain actually, because as soon as you disintermediate, what happens is basically you will see in a particular use case, for example, when you're talking about demand and supply will come closer actually. So that's something you have to think about. Then in case of governments, for example, We have to think about GDPR, right? An example. GDPR allows you to actually right to be forgotten. So that is a consideration which is directly at odds with what immutability in blockchain. What to do with that, basically. Another thing in GDPR is that you cannot identify a person even through proxy. So these are opposing standards that are coming out. So if you think about these considerations, then legally, what is legally binding? That's something you have to think about. Like something that is legally binding here might not be legally binding elsewhere. So when you disintermediate and you are thinking at global scale, you have to think about these problems. These are hard problems, actually. And then in terms of, like, for example, deploying, you start with something, the main considerations are around scalability and privacy. And those could be handled through design. And there are ways of actually handling that. So for example, we mentioned the permissioned distributed approach, but really, is it really the fully decentralized model? No, but it is actually, it will take you there. So those are the steps. So again, the main challenges are essentially, when you're thinking about these things, you have to think about the entire ecosystem, not just from the point of view of just technology, but because it's going to be deployed in real world. So it will have legal implications. It will have impacts on the market, impact on the people, basically. So that's in a nutshell what we
Thank
came
you.
across.
Do you want to add, do you have a comment to make on that?
I can add with regards to what you can see as our experience so far as potential challenges. The technology itself has its challenges. It presents its own challenges. So I'll skip over that one because we were addressing these in the discussions today. But the bigger challenges is the concept of, I think, governance. Governance wants definitions of things today, or wants to define them today, whilst the technology is maturing. You could come up with regulations today and within a month disrupt that regulation within the technology. So it was highlighted this morning. It's rather than regulation, it's guidelines that are dynamically changing with the technology maturing, so we can reach to the end goal of a regulation or governance structure at that stage. So that's really an awareness and understanding the concept that blockchain is one component of a solution, not being the solution itself.
Dr.
Yeah,
Hisham.
regarding the challenges, I can add that to the technical challenges that comes with the blockchain itself that people talk about, our colleagues here, like the scalability, interoperability, security, all this stuff. That comes with the technology itself. It's still not mature enough. But there is another challenge, which is the regulatory challenges, and how we can develop a framework that integrate with other existing policies and standards. Internationally, there is no one standard for the blockchain. And also, locally or in every country, there are some existing policies and bylaws and regulations that affect the blockchain, like, for example, data privacy or open data policies, cybersecurity policies, and also the other maybe technology, crime policies. All these exist right now. So we would like to come with a regulatory framework that can integrate and complement these things without making any contradictions. The last challenge that I believe is the local capability is very important, because when you introduce a new technology, you need to make sure that there is enough understanding and enough capable talent to promote this technology, because later on, I believe,
you agree with Dina?
yeah, I believe the technology is going to be sometime, the blockchain I'm talking about, is going to be an underpinning layer. It's like the internet. So right now, it's emerging technology because it's the time and it's still evolving. But I think in a few years, it will be the underpinning. It will be integrated with the legacy systems. And if there is not enough understanding and people can maintain and do operations for this technology, will be a challenge, and also will increase the cost, and maybe it will somehow will cause more problems than
Solve.
what is promised right now.
Thank you. Jihad, anything last?
They mentioned all of the above, but in general, blockchain for me is a transformation story, right? And it's like any change management story. Like you have people who resist change, right? So you need to find, you need to find somebody who is your change agent, right? The guy who will support this technology, the guy who will support this change. So those are things that we learn from engaging with customers. And the other thing I'd like to mention, it has been mentioned in different forms. Sometimes I sit with customers and ask them, why do you want to do blockchain? What's in it for you? What do you want? I think it was mentioned in the previous panel by the guy called Tufi or something. If you are going to build it and not remove trust and enable trust between and change that process, so use a database that's already there. I mean,
Yeah,
it'll
stick
be
to what you
cheaper for
have.
you. It's not a fancy name that you want to use and I want to build blockchain and tick a box. If it doesn't affect your process and improve it and speed it up and reduce complexity and trust, enable trust and remove middleman, then there's no point of doing it. It's
I want to thank you.
Can I just add one more thing to that?
Over time.
And which it's a quick one. Exactly to Dina's use case and why change is important. Airbnb is disrupting the house rental market. That's in a market which has a Ministry of Housing, and they can still penetrate and rent properties in your own land. So it's not a matter of should we be changing. We need to be changing because with the technology, borders are not there, and people can penetrate and undermine your own governance at that stage because they can override it. Airbnb can rent or Uber could penetrate, if there was no relation, into your market and undermine a government entity's position in certain things. So it's essential to keep that spirit of change essentially there because if you don't do it locally, someone from abroad will penetrate.
I want to thank you all, and I hope that next year I will have more stories to tell from each and every, more use cases from the government at Unlock. And eventually, I think the big dream is to have governments from different countries kind of do their own blockchain to work together and make a seamless 100%. And more, globally better governance model for everyone. Thank you all very much. Thank you.